Old School Lane Casual Chats is brought to you by oldsschoollane.blogspot.com and is associated with Channel Frederator, Manic Expression, The Comic Book Cast, and the Reopen Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando, Florida Facebook page.
What's a Scooby-Doo? We're coming after you. You're gonna solve that mystery. I see you, Scooby-Doo. The trail is making you. What's a Scooby-Doo? What's a Scooby-Doo? We're gonna follow you. You're gonna solve that mystery. I see you, Scooby-Doo. We're coming after you. What's a Scooby-Doo? Don't look back. You may find another clue. The Scooby is next. We'll be waiting for you. What's a Scooby-Doo? We're coming after you. You gotta solve that mystery. I see you, Scooby-Doo. The trail is making you. What's a Scooby-Doo? Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. What's a Scooby-Doo?
Hello everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of Casual Chats. I am Patricia, and I am here with a few special guests. For our returning guests, we have that long-haired creepy guy.
Yo.
Also, we have Taylor, aka Whyboy. So welcome back, Taylor.
Hello, great to be back.
So, today, I thought to myself, since recently you posted up your newest video on the latest Scooby-Doo movie, I thought it would be kind of cool we can look back on the Scooby-Doo franchise as a whole, since the both of you do cover Scooby-Doo on your channels. So, yeah, I'm sure you already probably talked about this before, so why don't you discuss about your history with Scooby-Doo, like your earliest memories?
My earliest memories, I would say I definitely watched a lot of the original Scooby-Doo Where Are You on just rerun on early Teletoon sort of days. Like usually early in the morning, they would just put it on repeat a lot. And I liked it for its little creepy atmosphere, the goofiness of Scooby and Shaggy and all that. And then my next biggest memory would have to be Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase, which was one of my favorite Scooby-Doo movies growing up. Like I watched that VHS over 100 times, basically wore it out and everything. Like, looking back on Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase on its own, it's definitely not one of the better Scooby-Doo movies. It's definitely got one of the most simplistic mysteries of all time. I just more liked it for, like, the world that this Scooby game took place in, as it's just inside a video game. So that was a much more interesting aspect to it. But that was basically most of my childhood. I liked Scooby-Doo for where it could go, because it seemed to not really have any sort of limit to anything. Especially nowadays, we have, like, it teaming up with Kiss. You got the Wild West now, and now it's going to be doing a whole CGI thing with Scoob coming up in 2018, which is going to be like a whole, it's going to be a whole, I think, sort of organization for mystery solvers, I think. Something like that.
I see. All right, and how about you, Creepy?
Well, like Taylor, my earliest memory of Scooby-Doo is actually believe it or not, is when I was around 1 or so. I have a vague memory of being on my older sister's lap. We would sit and watch cartoons together. And for some reason, just the show stood out. You know, it was just something about it just pulled me in, and I really loved it. And you know, like I think that's one reason why I've stayed connected to it, is because it is such an early childhood memory for me. But they would rerun the show when I was little on CBS, in the area that I lived in anyway, on the CBS network, the station for that area. They reran it on the afternoon, in like the afternoon cartoon block. It was Scooby-Doo, basically. And it stayed that way until like 85 or 86. I think it was 85. It stayed that way until Thundercats became a thing. They would run Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? They would run the Scooby-Doo show, the new Scooby-Doo movies, that sort of thing. Since they ran the new Scooby-Doo movies, they would split them up into two-parters, you know, since those episodes were hour-long ones. Weirdly enough, an incarnation of Scooby-Doo that I didn't watch when I was young, even though it came out when I would have been the right, you know, like considered the right age for it, you know, back then, was the 13 Ghosts of Scooby. Something I did not find out about until I was in my early 20s. But for some reason, it never aired in the area that I lived in. Not completely because of a lack of interest, but just because, well, there was nothing really. There were no real major Scooby-Doo there was nothing really big in the franchise until Zombie Island came out.
Right.
And when Zombie Island came out, that was when I started getting back into it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hear that story a lot, and I'll discuss more about that later. So my earliest history, when Cartoon Network started forming, around the mid-90s, this was when they had purchased the rights to air the Hanna-Barbera cartoons. And that's actually how I first got introduced to it. I started watching A Pup Named Scooby-Doo. I saw Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? I saw the Scooby-Doo show and the new Scooby-Doo movies. I don't think I saw any of the other incarnations. Like, I didn't see the 13 Ghosts, and I didn't see the Scooby-Doo and Scrappy show. So, yeah, those were the only ones that I could recall on. And then, I think once, like a long time ago, I think this was probably maybe Mr. Spim's Cartoon Theater, or Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater, as it was later called. They actually aired Scooby-Doo Goes Hollywood. So I actually saw that as well when I was younger. And yeah, ever since then, I pretty much went on and off with the franchise until eventually Zombie Island came out, and then I started getting fully invested in it again. So yeah, I guess now we can discuss about the series as a whole. I'm sure that we can go on forever about every single incarnation, but I think that, for the sake of time and sanity, we can be able to just discuss about, like, the main core of the series in itself. So, we have the characters, we have the mystery, we have the monsters, and, just, various incarnations, like the ones that are our favorites and least favorites. So, yeah, I guess we can start off with that. So, let's start off with incarnations. Like, in your opinion, like, especially with Taylor, since he's already covered, up to date at this point, what have you found to be your favorite TV incarnations of Scooby-Doo? And which one is your least favorite?
Thinking about it, it would definitely be the most simplest to say the Mystery Incorporated version of Scooby-Doo, as that felt like it was the best mixture of the more spooky, serious tone that I sort of liked from the original series, where everything was like a little bit creepy and all that, but also mixing in was what Scooby-Doo was best at, being goofy as well. It's sort of what I explained in my Shaggy Showdown review. What Scooby-Doo to me has always been, it's just sort of been like the ultimate comedic juxtaposition, taking the creepy situation that you open up on, and just throwing a goofy dog and his friends in there to basically turn it on its head. And Mystery Incorporated is just the one that basically showed the most drama, the most character development, and the best juxtaposition there with the comedy spinning on its head. Yeah, the least favorite would have to be something along the lines of the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, as you just got Flim Flam and Scrappy Doo there, the winning duo, especially with Flim Flam there. And Daphne didn't really do anything, she was just sort of like, just there. And Shaggy and Scooby were just typical Shaggy and Scooby. Like, there hasn't been really a bad incarnation of Shaggy and Scooby, except for in the sequel to the WWE movie, where they were just awful in that one. They were the most cowardly and selfish in that one that I ever seen them in.
Wow.
And that's the only sort of example I can see them as that, which is really sad.
Yeah. What about you, Creepy?
Well, for a long time, my least favorite incarnation was the new Scooby-Doo movies, which was actually the second incarnation of Scooby-Doo after Where Are You? I still, to this day, love Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? I haven't seen it extensively. I've still been putting it off. I'm under the impression that I won't be a huge fan of Shaggy and Scooby-Doo Get a Clue, But as far as my absolute favorite, like Taylor, for the same reasons, I love Mystery Incorporated, because Mystery Incorporated does what fans and even decriers of this franchise have wanted to see done for so long. It also takes a problem with the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo and corrects it. The flaw in the 13 Ghosts was that it really didn't change the format of, the Scooby-Doo formula at all. It just flipped it. It went from being always mundane to being always supernatural. So you could still expect the same thing every week. Mystery Incorporated left that level of uncertainty. Was this episode going to involve an actual supernatural occurrence, or was it going to involve a Scooby-Doo hoax? You didn't always know. And there would usually be a blend of the two together somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, conceptually, I do agree that Mystery Incorporated is the best one because it was able to take the series' core roots, but at the same time able to make it in a way that can throw in a flowing narrative, character development, and it just made everything more darker. And I think that was what Scooby-Doo needed for the longest time. And definitely, I do agree that is the best incarnation. And I don't know, I mean, who knows what happens later on in the future, if we'll ever get another incarnation like that. But I think that what it was able to accomplish, it was able to do it in a way that was very well done. And also another reason, because I grew up with it, I really liked A Pup Named Scooby-Doo as well. And I also, like Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? And... yeah, I think those three are my favorites. I haven't seen enough What's New Scooby-Doo, though. I know, our former colleague from Manic Expression, Bread Club 85, he once said that What's New Scooby-Doo is basically the new generation of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? In which it kind of, takes the series back to its roots, make it a little bit more, comedic and kind of self-aware of everything that's been going on, but, have that... It follows in the same tropes as what the previous incarnation did. But, just update a little bit. But, I haven't seen enough of the show to really state that to state my opinion on whether I like it or not. I think, and as for my least favorite, oh boy. I remember when I did eventually watch The 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo a few years ago at this point, I was kind of more let down because I saw so much potential in it. It was it was similar to Mystery Incorporated. It was a Scooby-Doo TV series that had a flowing narrative, and it had that Monster of the Week thing in which you caught every single ghost that was released from the chest, but I mean, it really could have built up upon it, but unfortunately, it just didn't work. It at points, it felt like there could have been some good ideas, but it kind of fell flat. And, of course, it didn't really help much that the series was canceled and it only had a handful of episodes left. Kind of like the same way as I felt about Pirates of the Dark Water, in which I cry every time. But anyway, enough of that. That's for my therapy sessions. So yeah, I would say 13 Ghosts because it was a massive letdown of what could have been. And, a lot of people also say, just like you were saying before, Creepy, about that Shaggy and Scooby-Doo Get a Clue is what many people consider to be either the worst or one of the worst. I still have not even seen Being Cool Scooby-Doo either, so I have no idea what to say about that. But I did see Rowdy's review on, what's of Shaggy and Scooby-Doo to Get a Clue, and it didn't look like fun. It did not look like fun.
Yeah, it's really not the sort of fun sort of series. It's definitely not traditional Scooby-Doo series. It's more like if we took the James Bond cartoon and put Shaggy and Scooby in the spot of James Bond. And it's just it feels a little bit soulless in a way. And Shaggy and Scooby are completely written as different characters in a sense.
Yeah,
also,
exactly. I mean, you could have done a cartoon based off of anybody and it wouldn't have mattered. It just felt really out of place, like, Shaggy and Scooby moving into a mansion because of their rich uncle getting an inheritance and blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, the last time I recall that Shaggy having a rich relative was from Scooby-Doo Meets the Boo Brothers. So you're trying to put that into continuity, but then he gave away the money to an orphanage, and also it was in the South. What?
Yeah.
Now, in regards to Boo Brothers, because I already did a review that my thoughts, but the thing about Boo Brothers is that it really did have good aesthetic, and I don't think I made mention of this in the review. I'll clear that up, and I'll apologize right now. But Boo Brothers did have good aesthetic. It just also relied too heavily on that aesthetic with things like the cliche hick sheriff, the horny bayou country girl, and pretty much anyone that was trying to talk in whatever the hell that accent was.
Yeah, I have to agree with you right there. I even placed Boo Brothers as my top 10 of worst Scooby-Doo movies. Not for the sake that it's like one of the worst movies out there, but it's just sort of like interestingly bad. It's got so much going with all the story elements and such, and it has that good aesthetic, but it just sort of all falls apart in the end. I only put it at number 10 because what do I else place on there? All the dull Scooby-Doo movies that basically disappear from your brain as soon as you watch them.
Right.
Yeah, so
I do have a good Scooby-Doo story regarding a Scooby-Doo movie, but I'll save that for later.
Okay, yeah.
I'm just going ahead and getting that out there right now.
Sure. So I guess that's really pretty much we can talk about, our favorite incarnations. I guess we can talk about, like, what are our favorite characters, both from the main core line and some of our favorite monsters. Because I think that with Scooby-Doo, there are hundreds upon hundreds of monsters and bad guys in the series that we can just all discuss about. And yeah, I want to know who some of your favorites are. So go ahead, Taylor.
I'm just trying to remember, just from the original lineup, I would say that, like, me and Nero have discussed it a few times, and one of his favorite ones and one of my favorite ones is Charlie the Robot, as he was, like, one of the only, like, real monsters from the original series, and he was such, like, a creepy character, because he was just a blank-faced robot that would chase after you in the theme park. So that would just make him completely scary. All the other monsters are definitely creepy in their own rights and definitely stick in mind. It's when we went into the future series that I went more for, like, the goofy monsters. Like, the one episode that I really remember is when it was, like, ghostly George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and another president were chasing after the game. And I was just like, no, this is just too goofy even for Scooby-Doo, and I'm just losing the creep factor of it. When it comes to movies, in fact, it's weird of me to say, but the one monster that really pops into my mind is the Ghost Bear from WrestleMania Mystery.
That's awesome.
It is such a great aesthetic to it. Just a bright red bear that would just smash anything to pieces. And he was an actual destructive monster, which is pretty surprising. Like, with one of the main wrestlers, The Miz, as he just gets his ass beaten by the Ghost Bear, he actually gets physically hurt by him. Like, scratched across the face, his arm busted. Like, it's an actual threatening monster, which is really cool. And it works with the whole wrestling theme, because, bear wrestling and all that.
Yeah, exactly. So next time, WrestleMania should have The Miz and, I don't know, some other wrestler versus that bear and Zangief from Street Fighter. I will actually pay to see that.
Yeah, but actually, WrestleMania Mystery is one of the movies that a lot of people do not seem to like. That and the Kiss one, because I guess because they have such a stigma to it, because of, like, oh, cheap crossover, look at this, you got Kiss, oh, look, are they just shilling out money now? Oh, those guys are sad. but I think definitely with the Scooby-Doo ones, they've had a long history doing all these crossovers, and they do actually do a lot with each crossover in a fun, creative way. None of the WrestleMania sequel, though, because that was just awful.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely the most interesting when it comes to crossover, Scooby-Doo does, because it has such an expansive world to do it in. Yeah,
I have yet to see any of the WrestleMania or Kiss movies, so I'll definitely need to check it out at some point.
Yeah, definitely watch the first one, and you can skip the second one. It's
sure.
They're not even wrestling in the second one half the time. That's the only thing that's interesting in the first one.
Okay. All right, how about you, Creepy?
Well, okay. There are the classic ones. For some reason, the Creeper stands out of my mind as far as Where Are You? The Creeper from Jeepers, It's the Creeper.
That's one of my favorites. That's one of my favorites, too.
Right. Who actually, not directly, it had a cameo, but, was tied into a couple of episodes of Mystery Incorporated as well. But I actually remember, as far as being genuinely creepy, I actually remember the Wax Phantom from the very last Scooby-Doo Where Are You episode, which title I think I have somewhere, but I don't remember right off the top of my head. Don't Fool with the Phantom, that's it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But The Wax Phantom, I remember, was creepy because of that weird noise he made. It was sort of like it was like a moan mixed with someone having an asthma attack, which doesn't sound scary the way I'm describing it, obviously. But, hearing it and seeing this big hulking blobbish, thing that glows in the dark was, is still a little bit creepy to me as a grown up man. But I will say that the scariest monster, bar none, the scariest bad guy in a mask that the show ever did was the ghost of Dr. Coffin from an episode of the Scooby-Doo show called Harum Scarum Sanitarum. It takes place in an insane asylum. Yes, there is an episode of Scooby-Doo that takes place in a crazy house. And with a mad doctor doing mind control experiments and, just having this really effective villain hyena laugh. And I don't know, it was just... And it has a lot of the classic, aesthetic. There's a thunderstorm. It's out in the middle of nowhere, following a car that somehow manages to vanish on you and all this other stuff. And I always felt like this episode was put together really well. And it managed to be scary a little bit, actually, to me at least. And I liked that.
I like that too. It's kind of interesting because you wouldn't expect that Scooby-Doo would take that into you wouldn't take a concept like that and turn it into a somewhat frightening corner. And now speaking about going to an insane asylum, I want the next Scooby-Doo game to be like that. So and Batman, take a break of Arkham. Let's have the Scooby-Doo characters go into the insane asylum.
Yeah, I mean, asylums to me in general are very scary.
Yeah.
I haven't covered it yet on my channel, but the second season of American Story, Asylum, was actually really, really good and very effective at being terrifying. To me at least, because I find asylums and just the idea of being committed to be frightening. That's very scary to me. So a Scooby-Doo episode that took place in an asylum is creepy.
Oh, yeah, definitely. There's so many that I can think of. Obviously, the Creeper is one of my favorites. The Witch Doctor is also one of my favorites, too. Because,
I remember that one.
I mean, it's just... who'd expect... I mean, sure, maybe it's not PC by today's standards, but, I thought that, a Witch Doctor, imagine that. If it can do something like crazy voodoo on you, that'd be kind of frightening. And also, and for silliness' sake... I just love the fact that in the Scooby-Doo show, the new Scooby-Doo movies, they had Batman and Robin, and then they had the Penguin and the Joker as villains, and then Batman and Robin came in a few episodes. It's that's just amazing. And also from A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, there's a lot of villains I can think of, there's that slime monster, there's Al Capone, there's, the babysitter from Beyond, and there's just so many of them. And
that was actually a really good episode in general from A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, the babysitter from Beyond.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And and also let's see what if I can think of anything else. I'm sure we'll talk about the movies monsters in a minute, but it's funny because, sure, there's been a lot of, really goofy monsters, but then they're able to mix in some really cool monsters that really stick out in people's memory. And, and so, of course, a lot of them do come back in, other incarnations, some of them more effective than others, but they're still remembered for a reason. And, I think that's pretty much it for the monsters. So, out of the gang members, who's your favorite?
It's a little bit of a coin flip. I don't want to just go the obvious answer, just say Shaggy or Scooby, because that's mostly everyone's favorite characters, because they are the most dynamic out of the bunch. As they're all they're both just cowards, but are also very brave, just always going headlong into danger and basically to save the day.
Like Luigi from Mario Brothers.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a little bit of a detriment to the other characters, as in the beginning, they weren't given such dynamic roles. We had Velma, who was just the solver of the day, Daphne, who just pointed out clues, and Fred was just the one, well, we gotta split up. Mm-hmm. And now it's at the beginning. But then Fred later got to be a little bit more dynamic. He got, like in Be Cool Scooby-Doo, he got to be sort of the snarky trap master. Velma was definitely the most snarkiest in that part. Actually, Velma altogether became so much more snarky past 2005 movies. So I would say Velma is my most favorite character. She's definitely the one that's basically changed out of the whole gang the most, rather than Daphne, who went through the whole girl power phase in What's New, Scooby-Doo.
How about you, Creepy?
Velma, hands down. I will admit, as a kid, I did like Shaggy and Scooby quite a bit. But honestly, just Velma is my favorite. It is, my character on that show. And the thing about it is, here's the weird thing to me personally about the character of Velma. You have Daphne, who is aesthetically drawn to be, really then, then in the late 60s, in the late 60s, and now, drawn to be aesthetically, the one you're supposed to like, the one you're supposed to be attracted to. But to me, I was like, I was always confused, as I got older, what's wrong? What's supposed to really be wrong with Velma? I mean, even in terms of looks, she's a little on the short side, but that's not really a detriment. And, that's really highly contestable. She wears glasses. So what? Glasses have become sexy now.
Yes.
And, she has freckles. Freckles are cute. I mean, the only real thing if there is a criticism, I mean, she's a size or two bigger than Daphne, but Daphne is pixie then anyway, and I'm there's really nothing at all unattractive about Velma, period. I mean, and there's a big question of how the hell did they let her in wearing a skirt that short? Her skirt is shorter than Daphne's is. I mean, that's some Sailor Moon right there.
I was just gonna say that, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anyone has noticed this, but this is 69, and they got this show on the air by drawing that girl's skirt that short, and and now I just laugh about that because I'm how? Was no one noticing? I mean, I think that thing might be an inch or two higher than what Sailor Moon wears. So,
oh, yeah. Well, I mean, at least with Sailor Moon, you can kind of make the argument that, well, in Japan, the length of the girls' skirts are kind of in a certain way of length because, that's how the Japanese wear their clothes. I mean, they have different ways of compared to America. And also a lot of people can say the argument that, the shorter skirt means that they can be able to move freely. But Velma's skirt, I mean, she's searching for clues. I mean, what excuse is that?
What excuse is this? I'm not complaining, mind you. I'm just wondering, because I mean, you try and wear a skirt like that in school now, you'll be arrested. And poor Velma, although I feel sorry for anyone who has to share a cell with her because we both know she would win. Velma is superhumanly strong, okay? I don't care how skinny Shaggy is. He would still weigh, on average, 160 pounds probably. So, she can lift and carry that plus a Great Dane's bulk. And Great Danes are muscle, it's unusual to see a flabby Great Dane. So she can lift upwards of 200 pounds and run at high speed with it. Yeah, okay. She'll just break whoever gets on her bad side into.
Oh my god. You know what? I think at this point, Frederator needs to do a theory on how much can Velma bench press at this point.
Yeah. I mean, Velma is superhuman, okay? I think Velma is those eugenics theories about certain DNA pairs combining to form an ideal human? I think Velma might be one, because think about this. She is physically attractive no matter, how the impression we're given by the show, no matter how much, she is very, very attractive. Okay, she's that. She's incredibly intelligent. She's observant, because, she's able to break down and process complex things like, a mystery, how mysteries function and so forth. And she is incredibly strong and fast. Okay, she's like the freaking bionic woman without any sort of implants or upgrades. And this is why the character is awesome. I really don't have a character I dislike, though. In the old, Fred is sort of the MacGyver of the group. He's built like a jock, but he's really more, the engineering mind of the group. He comes up with these Rube Goldberg traps on the fly, so he's more of a nerd than Shaggy is. Shaggy was actually more the jock. I remember in the old show, he was a gymnast, was on the track team and so forth, and his personality fits a jock better.
Yeah, definitely. I guess it kind of reminds me a little bit of Sakaki from Azumanga Daioh, in which she's a natural athlete, but she's not interested in joining any sports groups. So maybe maybe it's kind of like that sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a likable jock. He's a jock in the sense that he's on a couple of sports teams, but outside of that, he's more a hobbyist. He picks up little oddball interests until he loses interest in them. Because in the old show, he could throw his voice. He was into ventriloquism. He knew how puppetry marionettes worked a little bit. He played the xylophone. So, just little odds and ends he would study until he got bored with them and moved on to something else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing about it is I feel like all these character traits get lost as some of the later incarnations went on. Daphne is admittedly the character who needed the most retooling, though. I do like that they made her more of an action girl and having a little bit more of an interest in the occult, being sort of like the Mulder of the group. So, but hands down, Velma is my favorite.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because Velma's my favorite too, but I actually have a different reason. I actually have a story about this. So, because Scooby-Doo was being aired on Cartoon Network at the time, and because I was always a good student in my school, I was always teased a lot, and I was always called like this nerdy girl, and I kind of felt ashamed by it. And it's funny because, like, I don't remember what age I was. I probably was like around 15 or 16 years old. My family and I, we went to go meet up with like a distant relative who we've never met before, and then there was like this little girl who was like acting really obnoxious, and she basically just said, I kind of see you guys as like the gang members of Scooby-Doo. She told this to me and my cousins, and then she's like, I see you as Velma, and I'm like, okay. And granted, this was like at the point in which I was like, I don't know whether I should take it as an insult or as a compliment. Because, she sounded really conceited. But now I kind of take it as a compliment because she's always been, like, my favorite character. But, back then, it was kind of like, they called it that as a way of insulting me.
Yeah.
But, yeah, now looking back on it, I kind of see of it as, like, yeah, I guess I do kind of see myself as that. And I'm not ashamed to say it. As similar to you guys as a kid, my favorites were always Shaggy and Scooby. But then as time went on, my tastes have changed, and now I kind of see more of myself as Velma than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I guess that's pretty much it with the characters. So I guess now we can...
That's awesome, by the way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and I guess now that we're done with the characters, I guess we can now start talking about the movies. And there's so many movies. It's like... There's a movie left and right. I can't even catch up with it anymore. And they're still going at it. So,
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I guess we can start talking about what have been our favorites and least favorite movies. So go ahead, Taylor.
Well, I definitely already made my listing my top 10, even top 10 worst. Definitely the most worst movie in my mind is still Scooby-Doo Monsters Unleashed. That's basically... everything that I said about juxtaposition flipped on its head and just destroyed. As it took every one of the cool monsters from Where Are You, basically made them into the most childishly cartoonish just simplistic versions that they could have been rooting the sort of fan intrigue that a lot of other people were taking. Like, I talked to many friends and they love Monsters Unleashed compared to the other live-action Scooby-Doo movie. But it just felt like it was sort of like ripping out the heart of what a fan's love is, and basically just putting on displays like, here's money, give it to us now.
Oh, yeah. It's like forcing in nostalgia to make it feel familiar, but is nothing but pandering. It's like, hey, you remember that character? We listened to you. Do you like us now? It's like...
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, it's such a disgusting feeling. And not to mention the mystery, which was just sort of like, okay, it's there. It's got like A, B, C, and that's it to the mystery. I'll say the one good thing is probably just that it has at least the bare bones of a mystery, not like a lot of the other movies I've reviewed, which are just freaking awful. I'll say the worst mystery I've seen so far is definitely now in Scooby-Doo Shaggy's Showdown, which is basically, here are the clues to figure out the suspect. You can first get some luminol paint, which anyone could grab. You can get this cowboy costume, which anyone can have. The horses, which anyone can get. You can get... Someone stole the book of the sheriff, which anyone could have broken into. So, who do you think the suspect is, if anyone could have grabbed anything? And basically, the one clue to basically solve everything, to prove that the main guy did it, was that he used the same font on his website that he did to the card of the Black Rattler sort of like guy that's sort of trying to buy the whole town. Oh boy. Use the same font. That's the only clue that the movie gives us that says that the main bad guy did it.
Okay, so apparently the font was the same font that is used in Huckleberry Hound. El Kabong font. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised that there was nobody getting hit by guitars in the end of the movie.
Nero was pointing out that reference, and I was just like, oh, well, that's a nice reference, and also... Like, it doesn't help anything else. Oh, good, it's a reference. It's also a terrible plot point in all this.
Yes.
Yeah, it was. I mean, seriously, font was one of the major plot points in a Scooby-Doo movie. Font. Next thing you're gonna tell me, aliens are approaching. The billboard is gonna be the one to lead into the clue. Ooh. We need to solve the mystery, but we need to get back to the scene of the crime where this billboard has, like, these numbers, and it's going to point out to some combinations. Ooh, it's like, what? It's weird.
That sort of reminds me of Monster of Mexico now, where the bad guy was just on the billboard.
Yeah.
And that's the only spot where you would have saw him.
Exactly, that's what I was just referencing.
Like, that's the moments where it's the worst Scooby-Doo, where the mystery is not even complete. It's just done. It's like, well, we got all the beats to it. Let's just show it to kids, because it's a kid's mystery. It doesn't have to be that complicated. But it's not even complete for kids. Which is so insulting.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, jeez, it's so sad. But yeah, I highly recommend that you guys go check out Taylor's Best and Worst Scooby-Doo movies to find out more details. All right, Creepy, your turn.
Oh, well, okay, like, in the cases of a lot of the early, in the, 2000s Scooby movies, there are some decent ones and there are some really bad ones, but I have to stand by with what I still consider to this day to be the worst Scooby-Doo movie, and that is the 2002 live-action film.
Oh.
Yeah. I hate that movie so much. Like, I really do. Okay, I will admit that they did try to get a few things right. I did Daphne trying to assert herself and get over past her damsel in distress, stop it from taking over her life and being seen as the only thing she is. I liked that. That was good. The actress who played Velma in the movie did a good job. I not the best Velma, but by no means terrible in any sense. But okay, one in a long list of things is that is wrong with this movie is Fred is just insufferable.
Oh, I agree.
I hate
that.
Fred.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, and I can't even place the blame on Freddie Prinze Jr. for this. He's just written as a terrible character all over. But the thing that really bugs me about the movie the most is if you break down the plot and really look at it, the live-action movie of 2002 is basically almost a complete ripoff of Zombie Island.
Oh, yeah.
That's
mentioned
right,
that in my
yes.
review, too. This.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
It is just almost word for word Zombie Island rehashed. You know, it opens on a Scooby-Doo plot. You know, where the gang gets chased by a monster. That happens in Zombie Island and the live action movie. The gang is revealed to have split up. Same thing. They get back together. Same thing. They go to an island. Same thing. The island is revealed to be haunted. Same thing. The events are actually supernatural instead of just a hoax with a guy in a mask. Same thing. You know, just like the one thing that is different about the live action movie, compared to Zombie Island is who the main antagonist is revealed to be at the end, which is just okay. I said this in my Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo review, the review of the show altogether, but the problems that people attribute to Scrappy now were really nothing that had to do with Scrappy himself. It had to do with decisions that were made behind the scenes in regards to the show. If the character had been allowed to be his own character instead of taking over roles, that other characters had occupied before, that would have been fine. That would have been good, even. What they do at the end of the live-action movie just feels kind of... well, it feels insulting. And I say this as someone who recognizes that the character has problems. That this is problematic, but this has more to do with conception and creation and how the character was handled and decisions that were made regarding the show. Not just the character himself. Mm-hmm. Trying to make it so simplified and doing it the way that they did in the end, it feels rude, it feels tacky, and it's just done in poor taste. And I realize I'm talking about a live action movie that was based off of an old cartoon show, but it still felt, like, okay, yeah, this was just the last nail in the coffin. I guess that's why I honestly don't hate Monsters Unleashed as much as I hate the first live action movie. Like, I'm not saying Monsters Unleashed is a good movie, or even a good Scooby movie. But I will say that if you sat me down in a room and told me I had a choice between two movies to watch, like the only movies to watch within a 100-mile radius, and there's no Netflix or anything else, and those two movies were Scooby-Doo, the live-action Scooby-Doo, or Monsters Unleashed, chances are I would pick Monsters Unleashed. Monsters Unleashed is a whole other slew of problems, but I did actually feel like it was less awful compared to the first one.
I personally hate both of them, so I'm...
yeah, okay, yeah. I didn't feel as much rage-filled after watching the first live-action movie. Yeah, I didn't feel as much rage watching Monsters Unleashed as I did the first live-action movie. I was more just a little bored and disappointed.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh my god, the live action movie was just like a killer for me when I first saw it. It was like, hey, this was kind of like at the point in which, let's see, there was like a lot of live action movies based off of cartoons. We had, we had the Flintstones, which was another Hanna-Barbera cartoon that turned live action that sucked. And, let's see what else. I don't think we had anything else live action. I mean, there was the Jetsons movie, but that was in the 80s, and that was a completely different thing. And as for anything else, I can't really recall on, but yeah. I was hoping that maybe it would be, somewhat decent, because this was when I remember that Scooby-Doo was starting to become more relevant again. And then when it came out, it pretty much was like a massive letdown for me. everything about it was just so awful. Like, the portrayal of Fred, the fact that it was a rehash of Zombie Island. I mean, even I knew that when I first saw the movie. And the annoying fart jokes and the mystery.
Sorry. Lost the happy.
Sorry. And also, just... I don't know. The characters and the tone just didn't feel like it's Scooby-Doo. I mean, I kind of felt... It felt sort of like the person who was involved with it just didn't really like Scooby-Doo, and then they just wanted to kind of, like, spoof on it, but not spoof on it in a way that's, like, a tribute, but kind of like a way in which it was, like, I didn't like it, and so I'm just going to be able to make a mean-spirited version of it. It's like, I don't know. I mean, I'm very conflicted. It's like, it could have been good, but there were just so many things that they did to it that was just completely wrong. And it's just...
Patricia, you're exactly right on it. The writer James Gunn was basically... he did not want to write the Scooby-Doo thing. He was just contractually obligated to write it.
Yeah, but so what?
Exactly right.
So what? J.J. Abrams wanted to do more Star Wars than Star Trek, but at least in the Star Trek movie, at least the first one, it was good. At least in my opinion. Yeah. I know a lot of people hate it, but still, I mean, at least it was decent.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's just that James Gunn did not really care for the two movies and just wrote them just to get the paycheck at the end of it.
Right.
Yeah, I know, but still, I mean, you definitely feel the hatred and the money grabbing, and, I mean, what is that going to accomplish? I mean, sure, it's going to accomplish you a lot of money, but it's going to accomplish something soulless and uninspired and just absolutely hateful for the franchise. So, there you go, James Gunn. No matter how good Guardians of the Galaxy 2 turns out, I will still hate you for Scooby-Doo. There you go. Yeah. Okay, so that's enough of that. Anyway.
One other thing, if I could throw in. From what I've been able to read online from my research, the original script was, like, even worse. It was going to be a full-blown parody like the Brady Bunch movies.
At least the Brady Bunch movie was good. And the Brady Bunch movie was able to parody it, but it was in a way that it was kind of like spoofing Brady Bunch, but it was fun. But
yeah. And Velma and Daphne were in a secret lesbian relationship.
Of course they were. Of course they were.
Yeah, and that's why you have sort of references to Pod off streaming throughout the first movie. That's just little tidbits left from the old script. Like Mary Jane, we were smoking pot in the mystery machine at the very beginning of the movie, but actually cooking burgers.
Yeah.
Right.
You might as well just add in that little dance music sequence in that Kevin Smith movie. What's it called? I don't remember, but you know what I'm talking about. That little sequence, and it was like a kind of like a music video in which, the characters of Scooby-Doo are in the mystery machine. They're kind of like dancing, and Velma and Daphne are in their bras or something. So yeah, that thing. I don't remember where what movie that's from, but might as well throw in that.
Right.
Oh man, but if the movie would have turned out worse, then maybe I'm somewhat glad that we have the version, but not really.
Really. It's not as bad as it could have been, but it's really terrible.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And and everything you said is true. It feels like the South Park version of Scooby-Doo. It just
Yeah, just jeez, man. I mean, anyway, yeah, I don't want to talk about this movie anymore. So yeah, let's move on to something good. I'm sure that you guys already know about this little fact about Zombie Island. But for those who don't, Zombie Island was originally supposed to be pitched as a SWAT Cats episode before the show was canceled. And so they eventually worked it into a Scooby-Doo script. And the guy who wrote the Scooby-Doo script is, from what I remember... let me see if I remember his name. But yeah, the guy who worked on a lot of Hanna-Barbera projects, like the Smurfs and stuff like that. Eventually, he went off to write at least all 4 of the movies animated by Mook. And the 4th one he co-written. And then eventually he came along. That was when, he was no longer a part of the project. So let me see if I can look up his name just really quick. Let me see. There we go. Glenn Leopold. Now I remember his name. So yeah. So apparently, from what I remember, he was planning on writing that episode of the SWAT Cats, but then, because the show was canceled, it was reworked into Zombie Island, and he basically like took like little bits of elements from the canceled episode and did that. So yeah, I mean, it would have been really cool to see what would have that episode of the SWAT Cats been like. I mean, because now it's worked into Zombie Island, I guess we're not going to see it in the new incarnation of SWAT Cats that was recently kickstarted. So it's a shame.
I do have another bit of trivia. It was that same idea was also worked into an episode of the Real Adventures of Johnny Quest.
Right,
It
right.
It was an episode called Eclipse. Only it wasn't. It took place in New Orleans, and it did take place like out in the bayou. Part of it, but it wasn't a bunch of cat people. It was a woman who was actually a demon in disguise and could take, like, her true form was like some kind of bat creature.
Yeah, it was also written by the same guy. But yeah, you can definitely see that the same elements were able to be used in multiple Hanna-Barbera projects, which is pretty cool, by the way. And yeah, I think that, I mean, for a lot of people, they say that Zombie Island was the one that pretty much resurrected the franchise. I mean, you already talked about this before, Creepy, that around the 90s, Scooby-Doo was kind of like, you see like little bits of Scooby-Doo here and there, but, because of like reruns, but nothing brand new. I mean, I remember when I was like really young, I remember seeing the commercials for Universal Studios and they had like an attraction for Scooby-Doo, but as for anything brand new, it kind of like lived in perpetual past. But then when Zombie Island came along, it pretty much just shook up the franchise. And, it's kind of interesting that, something like that was able to come out for Scooby-Doo in a way that was, in a way, not intentional, but it really helped out the franchise. I mean, it's like one of the few franchises from Hanna-Barbera that's still relevant. I mean, sure, we have the Jetsons with its wrestling movie and the Flintstones with its wrestling movie. Yeah, I mean, what's going to be next? Magilla Gorilla in a wrestling movie?
I actually just watched all of those just a few days ago.
Oh my
I'm
God.
I'm surprised that they haven't done that already, if you want to know the truth.
But anyway, but yeah, I mean, God, I do not want to see Johnny Quest going to see a Metallica concert. But anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so just and then of course the other 4 movies done by Mook is like it's kind of like what many people consider like looking back on the first 3 Pokemon movies. It's like they were the ones that pretty much came out in a generation where people were just starting to get into the franchise, and it's the one that really stuck out to them because it took the series in a different direction that made it really unique and stand out.
Oh, also, speaking, you mentioned Johnny Quest. I actually sent a tweet to Greg Wiseman once a couple of years ago. I told him that I actually wanted to see him do his take on Johnny Quest one day, and he said it would be a challenge, but he would be interested in trying, so who knows?
Yeah, I actually said on my video on the top 10 Nicktoons any comic book adaptations, I would love for Greg Wiseman to do a different take on Danny Phantom. So, well, I mean, I know Butch Hartman is still interested in Danny Phantom. I mean, he pretty much draws him like every week on his YouTube channel, so who knows? I mean, I would like to see a different take on it, and I would love to see Greg Wiseman do it. So, yeah, I mean, Wiseman, hopefully you'll get to the job when you're done with Young Justice.
Let's hope.
Yeah, let's hope. All right. So yeah, you have anything else to say about the movies right before we move on?
The movies, just one of the ones that I like. I definitely think that nostalgically, the Zombie Island is definitely up there for definitely all of us. It's definitely the one, like you said, that sparked every other movie henceforth, just to revitalize the Scooby-Doo brand. I'm just wondering for everyone here, what about afterwards, after the Mook animation movies? What do you think about those movies afterwards? Like the Alohas, the Chill Outs, the Loch Ness Monster, even Abracadabra Doo, Camp Scare, and such.
I haven't watched all of them, but the ones that I do remember, like the Loch Ness Monster and Aloha Scooby-Doo, and what was the one where they went over to the mountains and they met with the Yeti?
Oh, Chill Out.
Chill Out, thank you. I think those are the 3 that I did see from the What's New Scooby-Doo lineup, and at times I feel like they're extended episodes of the show, but at other times I feel that they're pretty good. I mean, sure, not as good as and more risky than the ones that Mook did, but I felt that they were pretty decent in its own right, and I'm glad that they were able to, just like in every incarnation of Scooby-Doo, they were able to kind of like change up the formula, change up the character portrayals, whether you like them or not, and just add something new to it. And, sure, maybe you may not like it as compared to the previous, or maybe even the next incarnation, but it's always nice to know that they're trying some different things.
Yeah, definitely Scooby-Doo is definitely the best at experimentation with all of its movies. Like in one of the recent years, they did Moon Monster Madness, basically put, Rapture in Space, I believe I called it in my review. That's like one of the biggest projects they ever did, because that was one of the movies that I would say is the most cinematic of the Scooby-Doo movies in sound design and in actual aesthetic design.
That actually does sound really interesting. Scooby-Doo in space. Now I really want to see it.
Yeah, definitely try it out. I did like it the most for it. Definitely had one of the most colorful suspect pools around, so that was fun for me. And definitely the concept Scooby-Doo in space is definitely interesting.
It is.
They even do this really cool scene where they basically have Shaggy and Scooby bouncing around on the moon in space and have no sound to it, just like in real space. Until the chase scene happens, then there's sound again.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, of course.
Wacky shenanigans.
You gotta have wacky shenanigans, or the kids won't know when to laugh. Apparently.
Yeah. Next thing you know, we'll just have like those flashing applause signs that you have in the studio audience saying "Laugh now." So yeah, I really need to see that movie because it's the only. I haven't caught up with the newer ones in a while, but that one actually sounds pretty interesting to me. Yeah, any others that come into your mind?
Camp Scare was pretty interesting, as it put the game into a much more different sort of like dangerous situation where you had the woodsman there and a few of the other monsters in there. But the woodsman, it was actually set up sort of like the Friday the 13th character. Freddy, was it? Jason. That's
Jason,
it.
yeah.
He was just basically a Jason clone. And there was actually a scene where the camp counselor running through the woods, being chased by this axe-wielding psychopath until she winds up on a bridge. It's just like, it's a child version of the Friday the 13th movies, which was so interesting to me, because the characters actually put in like actual death-defying situations that weren't super over the top. It was just a crazy guy with an axe coming to get you.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing that you would probably never think about in Scooby-Doo. I mean, sure, Scooby-Doo deals with, horror and mystery, but, parroting something like Friday the 13th is quite something, I have to say.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. And then there was Abracadabra, where it did a little bit of parodying of Harry Potter in a sense, especially with the giant griffin monster. But yeah, those are the main movies that I can really think of from the newer lineup that really just stand out in my mind.
Sure. How about you, Creepy?
Well, I'm about to say something that I know is not going to be really popular, but I'm going to say it anyway. I actually really, really, really love the Scooby-Doo and Kiss movie.
Oh, I love it too. It's so much fun.
It is just hilarious. Like, I did a review, on the Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park movie from the late 70s, back when Kiss was in its first real heyday. But I was watching this and I'm like, this is what the live action Kiss movie should have been. They're rock stars, they have superpowers, and they're superheroes. And then they meet up with Scooby and the gang, and it is just all kinds of hilarious awesome. Like, there's this whole transformation sequence that is ripped right out of Sailor Moon Crystal. I kid you not. That is, I looked at that, I was like, that is directly out of Sailor Moon Crystal, and I just love the hell out of it.
Now I need to watch it.
Yeah, it's definitely
like
fun
all
for
these
that.
different notes that Kiss performs, that are basically like almost like music videos insert into it. But I honestly, normally I would hate this kind of thing because it breaks the narrative flow. But in the context of this movie, it makes sense. Like, there's this whole point where they actually, I'm giving away spoilers, I know, but they actually travel to another dimension where everything is powered by rock and roll.
What?
Like everything, all the tech, everything is powered by rock and roll. And to get there, Kiss has to sing "I Was Made for Loving You." And they do this on a giant spaceship guitar.
That is awesome.
Yes. Like, this whole movie from start to finish is just nothing but awesome. And I actually, the first time I ever watched this movie, Ingon Yama 70, who voices Chibi Thulu, we were both in Portland together, and he bought this movie for me, and he asked me if I wanted it, and I looked at it, and I was like, yes. And I had not seen it, and I watched it later, and throughout the whole movie, I was half expecting the movie to suck, but I figured, if nothing else, this will be good for a laugh. But I was like, I have to see this. So I watched it, and I was like, this is the most amazing thing ever. I loved it so much.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the more fun of the later Scooby-Doo movies. I do feel, though, that the crossover aspect was a little bit lackluster, though. And to put Kiss into, like, awesome roles, definitely with the Sailor Moon transformations and all that. But with the Scooby game, they sort of got placed into the supporting role, like, really hard. Especially when they put the whole mystery into the was it real sort of thing.
Yeah, that's the one thing about it that did annoy me.
It's kind of funny because I remember when you were talking, Creepy, about, Scooby-Doo and Arabian Night, and it felt like, these were all these stories that just so happened to have, like, Scooby characters in the sideline. Maybe they wanted to do a Kiss animated movie, but they felt that it wouldn't have marquee value for the kiddies, so they added Scooby-Doo in.
It's a possibility.
Yeah, I would guess that as well. That's what me and Nero were discussing when we were watching it, too. It's just like, wow, this is a really good Kiss movie. Scooby characters in the back there don't really fit in this.
Yeah.
But they are funny together. Definitely the Kiss and the game really have really good back and forth. Like Starchild and Fred's little back and forth when they're trying to swoon Daphne was hilarious.
That is hilarious.
Like, Fred takes a picture of Starchild and Daphne together and puts his thumb over Starchild's face. Then Starchild turns around and just paints a picture of him and Daphne and paints a thumb over his face. That was just hilarious.
It is hilarious. It really is.
Yeah, so... Yeah, and now I'm more interested in watching it than ever, even though I'm not exactly a huge Kiss fan. So, I still want to watch it, though. But yeah, it sounds really awesome.
Yes.
So yeah, I guess, I mean, if you don't have anything else to say about the franchise, I guess we can start wrapping things up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, at this point in time, the franchise in a few years from now is going to be 50 years old. And it's just so crazy to me that something is, like over almost like half a century and it's still going strong. So, I mean, since you guys have been covering Scooby-Doo for this long, why do you think it still has a staying power for many, many generations?
I think it's for the fact that I've just been saying. It's such an experimental series, though. Even to the point where people are just like, oh, God, this is so stupid. WrestleMania and Scooby-Doo, Kiss and Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo in space, oh. But in that sort of same mindset, it does intrigue people. It's like, what would it be like to have Scooby-Doo in space? And it just sort of brings people back to it. You see Scooby-Doo doing the Mystery Incorporated as it goes more serious, or Be Cool Scooby-Doo where it goes the more self-aware Family Guy style of humor to it. It's just always trying to do something new to keep things fresh and new, which is why I feel that it just sticks in people's minds. Just people are just wondering what's going to be next for Scooby-Doo.
What about you, Creepy?
It has a lot of staying power because, as weird as this might sound, the characters are relatable. You've got Shaggy, the, food-obsessed, somehow impossibly rail-thin, lovable coward, and track star, Daphne, the girly girl and martial artist, and, in some incarnations, who has a little bit of a thing with the occult, Velma, the criminologist and sleuth and forensic scientist, who loves and just, information in general. And Fred, the, lovable doofus and dork who's, a little on the big side, but is also, really, really, really into engineering. And you can be a big muscle guy and still have a brain. And I do think that speaks to people, and I think all of these characters people. But it was also the very first animated Saturday morning show, at least to my knowledge, that introduced the whodunit formula to young people.
Yeah, I mean, because, later on, after, even in the 90s, after Scooby-Doo kind of, took a little bit of a, took a little bit of a break and then just relied on its reruns, we had a lot of other, animated or live-action incarnations that had, the whodunit mystery scenario. We had Ghost Rider, we had Shelby Woo, and Sherlock Holmes of the 22nd century. So a lot of people still have interest in mysteries and stuff like that. I mean, so yeah, there's just an intrigue about learning about who done it and putting together all the clues and stuff like that. And I guess Scooby-Doo was the one that popularized it.
Right. If it wasn't the first cartoon show on Saturday mornings that did that, it definitely was the show that popularized it. And I think it's still doing that. It is still introducing young minds to, clue solving, to logical thought processes, and simple observational skills, spotting things in the background or in the foreground that are planted in such a way that you may not notice on your first watch, but you pick up, is teaching you to be observant and teaching you to be intelligent, maybe just a little bit. I mean, maybe this isn't the best example of, a show that is, being educational or this kind of stuff, but that's kind of what makes it nifty because it's doing it in such a subtle way.
Yeah.
It is being very, very subtle about how it does these things.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that is something to consider, And, I love mysteries. I'm still watching Detective Conan after all these years, not I'll let episodes build up and then binge watch it, but I'll still go back to it, And I find myself going back to Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, same with me.
Yeah, as for me, I mean, I think it's a combination of what you both said, in which, you can be able to have Scooby-Doo be so versatile in a whole bunch of things. Unlike most of the Hanna-Barbera cartoons, it doesn't have that versatility. With the Flintstones, I mean, they're always going to be in the Stone Age. It's not like you can take them into, outer space, or you can, take them over to, a camp or anything like that. I mean, they're all, it's basically stuck in the Stone Age, because that's how we familiarize with them. Same thing with the Jetsons, in which, sure, you can have it take place in the future, but you can only work with kind of that outer space kind of thing. And with, Johnny Quest, in which, it has to be focused on an adventure. You can expand the adventure, but you can't expect Johnny Quest to be Johnny Quest and the gang are in a circus or anything like that. Or
a high school drama where they go to school every day and Jessie Bannon is obsessed about whether or not a boy she likes her back.
Exactly. So yeah, you don't have that kind of versatility. And, because of, Scooby-Doo being, the gang are essentially teenagers, mid-teenagers. So you can be able to have, it can be young enough for them to have, being able to explore the world, but, old enough for people to kind of look up to as role models. So it appeals to all the audiences. And also because, again, you were saying that the characters are very versatile and you can be able to, tweak their characters around a bit. I mean, sure, maybe they may not be the same as what they were previously, but at least they can be able to be worked around in a way that, it's different, but at the same time, it feels very familiar. And I think that because of that, because at points they try to do so many things to the franchise, that's what makes it still fresh in people's minds. And if it continues on, until when it reaches the 50-year anniversary, I mean, in a way, out of all the Hanna-Barbera cartoons, it kind of deserves it because it was the one that took a lot of risks. It's the one that generated so much love and appreciation for all the fans, and it still is reminiscent of this was how it was back in the day, how cartoons was, but I can still enjoy this. And I won't have to, worry about like, oh, I need to watch all these versions in order for me to understand this. It's like it could be for anybody, no matter what incarnation that you watch. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention another, something related to Scooby-Doo that's one of my all-time favorites. The Johnny Bravo episode is one of my favorites.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that episode. I don't care what anybody says. That Johnny Bravo episode in which it crossed over with the Scooby-Doo gang is one of my favorite episodes. Deal with it.
Yes.
Anyway, I think that the last thing I can talk about is, like, I remember listening to this story in a podcast once about a guy who used to dress up in a Scooby-Doo costume in Universal Studios. And, it was like he was finishing his shift for the day, and then all of a sudden, one of the guys who was in one of the costumes wasn't able to make it, and so he dressed up as Scooby-Doo during his off time. And so there was this little kid who was like 3 or 4 years old, and he approached him and saying like, I waited all day to come see Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo is my favorite. And the guy was just so touched by that little kid, and it's like, that's just amazing, because, I mean, for a lot of the younger kids out there, they may think, oh, something as old as like that, and, I mean, how can I relate to that? But no, I think that because it's lasted for this long, and because it has so many incarnations and versatility, it still can resonate with a lot of people, even still to this day. So that's all I have to say about it. All right, I think that should be it for this episode. So yeah, guys, why don't you plug and promote your stuff?
Well, like Patricia said at the beginning, I have my new Cartoon Corner review out of Scooby-Doo Shaggy Showdown. Going over and just check that out. I even have a little giveaway of a little series box set of the original Scooby-Doo Where Are You? So you can enter that as well as enjoy me ripping apart that terrible movie.
Yay! All right, how about you, Creepy?
I have my retrospective reviews channel, and it's funny that I'm doing this Scooby-Doo podcast today because there is something at long last related showing up soon.
Hooray! That's awesome!
Yeah. Unenthusiastic, yay!
Oh no! I can guess what it is! Oh, I am so sorry. Good luck to you. I will send you my sympathies. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That didn't last long.
but seriously though, I'm sorry, and I hope the best for you and Chibi. Just, I'm sorry. Anyway, so yeah, by the time that this podcast comes out, I would have already posted my hour-long discussion about if Disney's Doug is really that bad. So go check that out. I put a lot of work into it. I discussed about the TV show, I discussed about the movie, and I discussed about some little tidbits and behind-the-scenes stories that you may or may not know. So yeah, please go check it out. I put in a lot of work into it. And next time on my video will be my top 10 Angry Beavers episodes, and then afterwards I got a few other surprises coming up, so stay tuned. Alright, so that's it. Oh, I'm really excited to show it off. So yeah, that's it for this episode of Casual Chats. Let us know in the comments below about how you first got introduced to Scooby-Doo, whether you got first introduced to it by the TV series or the movies, or even the video games, which you didn't even talk about because I've never played them. Or if you guys want, you can share, who your favorite characters are, your favorite monsters, and yeah, and thank you so much for listening. Hope to see you around soon, and take care.
Something awoke me from my sleep last night. Jumped out of bed and turned on all the lights. I started thinking maybe this was a dream, but then I heard the mystery machine.